Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 3 of brand new Cherry Flavor. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we have Lisa waking up to her plant, which is grown buck wild, and is like, oh, cool. So that happened, and it's going to the point that it's growing through her floorboard, and then she goes down like, hey, I'm your neighbor upstairs. Wait, it's growing here too through the roof. That's wild. What the hell is going on? And then it gets even more interesting because later on, Christine comes over and it's like, whoa, was that already there? It's like, no, like it's growing through my floor. It's like, plants don't usually grow down through a floor like that. Because she also said like, yeah, I checked the building. No one else is here. I was like, wait, did you not really? I guess it's like, right, she knew this apartment was available. So that's crazy to know that she's literally the only, because I was like, yeah, you would think at some, well, because I was about to say, you think at some point she would have bumped into like some neighbors or that would have been an issue. Because at first I was like, I was like, oh, that neighbor's dead because they got eaten by the plant because it grew. It's like, no, because apparently the whole place is by itself. And I'm like, how much like did Boro set a lot of this stuff up? I mean, because she was waiting outside of Lisa's place. She had her biker dude following Lisa. So I'm like, what's going on there? It's like, and that's also the thing too, like, once again, it seems like there's some veil of like, there's something going on where people aren't quite sure about things. Like, because for Christine, and I mean, I guess it's like, right, here's an apartment number that's available. And I guess like, since it's the only apartment available, I guess you just assume like, oh, people must live in the other ones. But it's like, no, they're all empty too. Lisa's the only person that lives in that entire apartment building, which is like, interesting. And then there's also like the little hatch door that pops up on her floor later on. It's like, what the hell is that? It's like, oh, was it this? It's like, no, this wasn't here before. Don't you remember? You would know it if anything. You came in here to check the place out. And then, Christine was like, was it? I actually don't remember. I'm like, there's some like magical haze going on where it's like I said, like stuff is kind of getting thrown out there and people are like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. Like they're accepting of it. But I think everyone's kind of caught in a little bit of a magical haze where it's like, was that what? It's like I said, it's almost like a fever dream in certain regards. Like I said, so much stuff gets washed over people where I think sometimes they take it in, other times they don't. Especially because like you have your boy Lou showing up and he's like, oh man, that curse still nada. And once again, I think out of anyone, he's the one not really taking her seriously. Because it's hard to say like who's taking her serious, who's not. I think most people aren't. But it turns out like, apparently it's been 3 days. Like it's like, whoa, like she was, I guess like that whole curse thing ended up like this whole thing ended up wiping her out a lot more than she was expecting. Because Boro did stop by, and yes, like I brought up last episode, we get cat number 3. So all right, we'll have to continue. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out, like keeping a total of like seeing how many like whether or not we get like the 6 more after this or not. But we'll see. 1 per episode, and I feel like because there is only 8 episodes, 1 episode is going to have to double up. Like I said, I'm only throwing that out there because of the 9 like lives of a cat type of thing, but it might not be that. It might be like 7 is typically like the magical number in certain regards, but also it's like, well, because I was about to say it's like, well, we're at the 3 mark because that's video game logic. Things happen in 3. A boss fight, you have to do something in 3 phases. Just a puzzle or something, it happens in 3s, that type of thing. I doubt it's going to stop with 3. I think it's going to go all the way to 9, but we'll see. If not, my second guess would be 7. But it's a question, because even like, and what I thought was so interesting too is like a lot of stuff is catching Boro off guard. I'm like, you're like the witch in this. Should nothing surprise you? Shouldn't you know exactly what's going on? Because she's like, oh, wow, I knew the plant was wild like you, but oh man, this grew a lot more than I was expecting. He's like, how is a lot of, I guess like Lisa is like on some of, like something inside of Lisa is so special that she's like, wow, you're blowing my expectations away. I didn't expect it to grow this much. I mean, hell, we even see later on throughout the episode, it has grown even more because it's starting, not even just that part of the wall and ceiling where it is, it started spreading to the rest of the walls even more so, like spreading out like further down the walls on the side. But obviously for Lisa, after she was talking with Lou, it was because she was pissed off because at the conversation with Lou, he's like, basically like, oh, I want you to work as an assistant. It's like, what? He's like, yeah, look at this. They're saying like, oh, my next movie is going to be box office magic, yada yada. It's like, oh, things are looking good for him and stuff like that, potential Oscar contender and stuff like that. All she can do is laugh about it. He's saying like, oh, they'll say the same thing about basically rubbing it in her face, like the next movie I make after this will be your movie, and oh, that's going to be so beautiful. Well, I mean, we all want the movie to be big, right? So essentially, it's like, you can be my assistant. It's like, work with me if you want to. You can throw out a few ideas and stuff like that. So she basically told Lou to get lost, but once again, things are working out for him, and she's like, at the end of the day, I'm the only. And I also love she threw up the cat, and just it's not even a conversation anymore. It's just kind of like, why do I feel like crap and Lou's doing good, and just like Boro's focused on the cat and everything. So it's like, all right, you want me to go to that lunch or whatever with them? Yeah, he'll have a little something will go down. And it turns out that something is hiccups or something like that's. I can understand why she feels like she got shafted a little in that regard, because like, really, hiccups? And I just love her response. Hiccups suck. Because I do that. He's doing that hiccup thing, and I love like everyone's thing of like, oh, drink water. He's like, that was what I'm about to do. It's like, what you need to do is it's like, oh, hold your tongue. Like, oh no, drink some salt water. Like everyone's giving him suggestions. Just like, yeah, that's all it was, hiccups. But I like that. Like during the conversation. Like, it's like, Lisa's like, I'm not stupid. I get why. Like, it's the whole point was like, oh, Jules paid his due and everything like that. So that's why he's getting this opportunity. But she's like, if he sucks so much, why is he getting the opportunity? Like, why can't you just let me direct why can't I have my movie back? Like, why is that so unthinkable? Like, that is the thing of like, yeah, Jules suck. If it's so hand-holding and stuff. But it's like, he doesn't want to give her movie back because for him it's like, I think for him it's like, this movie, it would be wasted on you. It's a good movie. It's a gold mine of a property of like, oh, I can do my thing with it and everything. And I mean, it's still the whole middle finger. Like, I'm sure he's punishing her even more for her response at the end of episode 1, coming to our house and everything. It's like, to be fair, you did like grab her, choke her, steal from her, but there's a whole thing there. But I just, like, he wants her to be a part of the project and everything, insistent and everything, because it's like, right, you just want me there so that I can pitch some ideas, and that way you can add them to, like, what's your bastardization of my movie that you're making. But I'm like, yeah, it would be simple just to hand her movie over, but I think his scumbag pride won't let him. It's like, no, she challenged me. She needs to learn her lesson. Like, or at the very least, he is so full of himself that does believe, like, no, this is how things work here. You pay your dues, and then you get opportunities later on down the road. Fine, you could get like like a producer, an executive producer role or something like that, or like some producer credits or something like that. It's like, no, I'm not going to take anything while that bastard is getting the title of director. So Boro is basically, what was the whole thing of like, like hiccups suck and stuff like that, but it's like, all right, Lisa's like, let's do the poison toe thing. It's like, nah, that involves a lot of blood and sex magic. It could kill you. She's like, well then, God, what was it? She had made a few suggestions. I remember one of them being like, some like Brazilian spider to get his dick hard for so long that it falls off or something like that. So, but Boro's like, all right, cool. You want him to suffer. You want to accelerate things. The plant I gave you, find a flower from it and basically get it inside of it. Like, just get it inside. Yeah, get him to drink it or up his ass, whatever. I'm like, I love that that's a suggestion. But, yeah. So she goes back there and she's with Kristen, and Kristen ends up helping. Well, Christine ends up finding a flower, and then it's like, oh, she ends up like shoveling the pollen and like the bug out. And at the same time, Roy calls and he's like, oh, I want to go skydiving. She's like, nah. Oh, you're going to that party of Lou's, right, where he's screening a movie or whatever? Get me invited. Okay, cool. And it's like, oh, so what did Roy want to talk about you on the phone? He just wants to fuck me. And it's like, oh, okay. Now we're going to a thing and he just wants to. And it's like, okay, cool. Just like super casual. Also, but that adds that whole scene does add the biggest question, like, what the hell is in that, like, especially considering, like, is that door not on top of a different room? Well, no, because, like, yeah, because I was about to say, like, wouldn't that, I guess maybe the positioning of it isn't over the, I would assume it, like, there'd be a room on top, but I guess, like, I guess it could be, like, there's a space in between, like, the floor, but I'm like, there isn't that much space in between the floors of, like, a building like that. Those floors are pretty thin. I don't think, I mean, I guess it depends on the building, but I'm like, where the hell could that little hatch go? Possibly. I am really curious to find out what that's all about, but then, Liz goes to the party with Roy, and lo and behold, your boy Lou is still hiccuping a little bit, so that's interesting. I actually skipped over it too, but there was that conversation with Boro about Lisa's like, yeah, I'm still having those nightmares. And it turns out, like, I guess it's, like, supposed to be kind of nightmares from, like, based on her mom, because it's a figure that looks like her mom from behind, but then, like, it turns and there's no face, I think, because now she actually started drawing it on the wall where the plant's growing through, but also, like, she's still seeing that creature. It's like, if you see it again, ignore it. Like, that's kind of, it's like, I'm loving that's just your thing. Ignore it. It's like, something, it's like, yeah, it's kind of stuck on the other side, like, it might be there, but it can't really do anything to you. You're fine. I'm like, I don't know. And even, like I said, it just seemed like there's certain situations where it's almost like, she's like, huh, you're still dealing with that. Like, she hasn't outright said that, but she has that expression almost like, either she knows a lot more that it's going on and she's playing super coy, or the fact is that she doesn't, and this is all surprising her, which goes back to my point, like, you're the witch in this situation, this curse and stuff, like, shouldn't you have a better understanding of what's going on, have a better idea of, like, oh, there shouldn't be anything that's going beyond your expectation, but like I said, maybe she had high hopes for Lisa, and Lisa's actually exceeding said hopes and expectations, but circling back to it, at the party, Lou's introducing her to people, because even Roy's being like, oh, this is about that curse thing of yours. And she's kind of like, he's like, how's that her curse thing going? She's like, it's going. It's kind of a slow process. So, I also love, it's like, oh, guess who's at the party? Boro. She's like, oh, I love parties. This is my friend Denise. It's like, is your friend Denise okay? She's dead. Smile, Denise. And I'm like, and she just like, I'm like, once again, why is just no one noticing the weird crap associated with that lady? Just like, because like the only person we know that's ever noticed her was Roy, because he was like, oh, that weird lady over there has been watching you the entire time. It's like I said, there's like some like haze or something magical that kind of makes it kind of like all this wacky weirdness kind of like floats by the subconscious, like the conscious mind or something. It's like it's there, but it's like a layer of fog or something over people. But Lou introduces Lisa to some people. It's like, oh, ha. And Lisa decides not to use the flower dust, like the stuff from the flower. Because I guess it's like, right, regardless of how I feel about it. Because Boro had told Lisa she needs to find a way to start moving forward. So I guess that's like, right, fine, it sucks, but it is what it is. He has introduced me to people that maybe I can take advantage of this. But then she hears from Jonathan, who was drinking, and there was a freaking eyeball in it. And it's like, oh, yeah, he's screening your movie. And then that bastard had the audacity to be like, oh yeah, I found it on my assistant's desk. And then that bastard, Jules, stuck the knife in deeper. But like, I'll let you know ahead. Like, the moment he locked eyes with Lisa, because I guess in my head, I didn't recognize the name Jules. I didn't realize it was the dude that's directing the movie, her that's going to be directing the full motion picture version of her movie. I didn't realize it was the dude who gave her terrible advice. It's no wonder he gave her terrible advice, because he was probably incentivized to do it. He probably went to, because like his whole thing is like he did music videos, because he was like, oh, some of you might know me from my music videos, but it's like, it's probably a situation of like, after he read over the contract, he probably came to, Lou about it. That's what I was bringing up before. Like, at what point did Lou decide to screw her over? Was it already there in a vague notion, or was it the moment Lisa turned his like hand away? That's when he solidified it. Maybe it was already kind of happening, but he's sticking the knife in deeper now because she turned down his advances. But it's like, yo, like, Jules, like, she's a buddy of your pal Code. I mean, I'd assume that you're tight with Code, but I guess not. But it's just like the fact is, the moment he locked eyes with her, he doubled down on being a piece of shit. I was like, you suck. I do like that the scene like turns like bright, like blood red, and it's just like, oh, yep, here's the movie getting played. Where it's like, did you know your movie was gonna get played? He's gonna play your movie, and so she bounces, finds Lou. It's like, oh, you're sniffing some coke. Cool, sure. Oh yeah, here's some of this. It's like, you do a line first. I was like, probably not a good idea. Okay, good. Not good. I mean, you sniffed coke, but it's like, yeah, at least it wasn't the line you were setting up for him. And he sniffs it, bug and all. She's like, yeah, my new dealer is kind of a wild card. He's like, yeah. So he's going out. He's flipping out. He's talking about, it feels like he's having some allergic reaction. And she's smiling, but then she just focuses her eyes on Jules, and then he bursts into flames like some fire starter, pyrokinesis type of shit, and you're like, whoa, okay. At first I was like, is that actually happening, or is that all in her head? And it's like, nope, he falls in the water. And even at one point, Roy kind of looks, because he's like, this kind of has to be on you. Like, he knows something's up. And that's the thing, too, like, the moment that happens, like, what's his face stops scratching. So like, I was like, they are supposed to be connected, so he was feeling her raw emotions, and I guess maybe it kind of like it was bubbling and manifesting through him. But then it's also like the whole point is setting his life on fire, and then Jules ends up literally catching on fire. But also it's like, right, here's the director that you wanted, you were setting up in front of everybody, like, oh, this is the director that's going to be directing this movie, so what? And like, now he's dead, so that kind of screwed you over a little. I would have expected if it, like, it's just interesting that, like, it happened to Jules instead of Lou, but I think the point is, like, you're, like, burning his life to the ground around him. It's like, you want him to suffer a little bit. I mean, that's what, she wants him to be in pain and everything, which she's like, this isn't what I wanted. And Bora was like, it's exactly what you wanted. You know, this is just kind of basically like, this is the beginning. There's still a lot of work ahead of us. So, interesting turn of events. I legitimately didn't see that Jules thing coming, of like her killing him like that. It's kind of like, oh, poor bastard. And his girlfriend, it looks like she's got less bandages on, so I guess like that healing process. I wonder if she legitimately, like, how that's gonna. I don't expect that to turn out well. I'm also curious, like, what the aftermath of this is gonna look like in episode 4 of like, is that like, oh, Jules, R.I.P. What's gonna happen about the director situation? I don't know. Is he just going to, like, refusing to give her back her shot, give her back her movie? He's just probably going to still try and find a different director to do it rather than giving it her. Because I'm sure, like, when it came to our movie, he probably because he definitely removed the ending where it's like written by and directed by Lisa Nova. Like, you definitely know he had to do that, you know, trying to make it seem like, oh, some unknown person, doesn't matter, blah 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 blah. But either way, I'm interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.